They weren't using brute force, they were using physics. And they had another weapon: time. Conservative estimates suggest 20,000 to 30,000 workers were involved in the pyramid's construction. Not slaves. We'll get to that. But organized, skilled laborers working in rotating shifts, housed in purpose-built villages, fed, paid, and treated for injuries. This wasn't chaos. This was a project. For decades, the biggest unsolved problem in pyramid construction was this: how did they get the stones to the top? The pyramid rises to nearly 500 feet. You can't just drag a 15-ton block straight up a sheer face. You need some kind of ramp. But a straight external ramp, long enough to reach the top, would have required more material than the pyramid itself. It seemed like a dead end. Then, in 2018, archaeologists working at a site called Hatnub, an ancient alabaster quarry in the Egyptian desert, made a discovery that changed everything. Cut into the walls of the quarry were the remains of a ramp. But not just any ramp. This one was steep, far steeper than anything previously thought possible for moving heavy stones. And on both sides of the ramp were notches carved into the rock with wooden post holes. The design reveals something brilliant. Instead of one massive external ramp spiraling up the outside, which would be visible and would have left enormous evidence, the Egyptians may have used a system of interior spiral ramps combined with ropes looped around wooden posts, allowing small teams to haul stones upward with mechanical advantage. A ramp on the inside, hidden, efficient, ingenious. French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin had proposed exactly this theory years earlier, but it was largely dismissed. The Hatnub discovery suddenly gave it real physical weight. We may never know the complete picture, but what's clear is this: the ancient Egyptians weren't guessing. They were engineering. For a long time, the most persistent myth about the pyramids wasn't about their age or their architecture. It was about the people who built them. The image that stuck in popular culture was one of countless slaves, driven under the whip, forced to haul stone until they dropped. It was dramatic, it was cinematic, and it was wrong. In 1990, a horse stumbled near the Giza plateau and revealed a buried wall. What followed was one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in modern history: an entire workers' city. Excavations over the following decades uncovered bakeries, breweries, medical facilities, and administrative buildings. A fully functioning urban settlement, capable of supporting tens of thousands of people. The workers buried there, and many were, with full funerary rites, showed signs of sophisticated medical care, healed fractures, amputations that survived, evidence of bone surgery. These were not disposable people. These were valued workers. Ancient graffiti found on stones inside the pyramid, scrawled by the work gangs themselves, includes team names like Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure. These are the marks of men with identities, with pride, with humor. They were skilled craftsmen, administrators, doctors, and laborers, organized into a workforce that modern construction managers would recognize immediately. They built the greatest structure in human history, and they knew it. So, is the Great Pyramid 20,000 years old? The honest answer is, probably not. The weight of evidence, the radiocarbon dates, the inscriptions, the workers' village, the quarry records, all points to construction around 2560 BC. But Donini's theory does something valuable. It forces us to ask harder questions, to look more carefully at what we think we know versus what we can actually prove. Because here's the thing about the Great Pyramid: it is still, after all these years, a structure that defies easy explanation. Not because it's supernatural, not because aliens built it, but because the people who built it were extraordinary in their intelligence, their organization, their ambition, and their craftsmanship. We live in an age of satellites and supercomputers, and we are still figuring out how they did it. That's not a mystery to be ashamed of. That's a monument to just how remarkable the human mind has always been. Imagine standing in front of something so massive, so impossibly precise, that your brain simply refuses to accept that human hands built it. The Great Pyramid of Giza, 481 feet tall, 2.3 million stone blocks, each one weighing up to 80 tons. For centuries, we thought we had the answer. Built around 2560 BC by the pharaoh Khufu over roughly 2 decades. Clean, simple, done. But what if that answer is wrong? What if the most iconic structure on the face of the earth is not 4,500 years old, but 20,000? That's the question that one Italian researcher dared to ask. And the moment he published his answer, the world of archaeology caught fire. Today, we're going deep. We're looking at the science, the stones, the sweat, and the mystery to find out what we actually know about the pyramids and what we only think we know. Here's where the story gets complicated. Most mainstream Egyptologists place the construction of the Great Pyramid firmly around 2560 BC. That's not a guess. It's backed by radiocarbon dating on organic material found at the site, ancient inscriptions, and centuries of archaeological evidence. The consensus is strong. But Italian researcher Alberto Donini looked at the same pyramids and saw something different. He developed what he calls the relative erosion method, a technique that examines how deeply the surface of the stone has been worn down by wind, sand, and time. The idea is simple. The more erosion, the older the structure. Donini's calculations pointed to a date not of 4,500 years, but of 20,000 years ago. Let that sink in. 20,000 years ago, there was no farming, no writing, no cities. Humans were still hunter-gatherers, barely leaving behind stone tools. The idea that someone then built a structure this precise feels almost impossible. And that's exactly what critics argue. Erosion isn't a perfect clock. It doesn't account for differences in stone quality, microclimates, ancient resurfacing, or centuries of human activity at the site. Donini's method, many geologists say, is interesting, but far from conclusive. Still, the question lingers, because the Great Pyramid isn't just big, it's accurate. Its 4 sides align to the cardinal directions with an error of less than 0.06 degrees. It sits almost perfectly at the geographic center of Earth's landmass. The granite chambers inside are cut to tolerances that even modern stonecutters would struggle to match. If this was built 4,500 years ago, how? And if it wasn't, then who built it? Let's set aside the age debate for a moment and focus on what might be the most jaw-dropping question of all. How did they actually do it? No steel, no engines, no cranes, no GPS, just human bodies, ropes, wood, and an almost incomprehensible level of organizational genius. Here's what the evidence tells us. The limestone blocks used in the outer casing came from quarries just south of the pyramid, close enough to haul. But the massive granite stones used inside, in the king's chamber and the stress-relieving chambers above it, those came from Aswan, over 500 miles away. They were moving 60-ton blocks of granite across half a country. Somehow, one leading theory involves wooden sledges. Workers would place a heavy block on a sledge, then pour water in front of it as it was dragged across the sand. Modern experiments have shown that wet sand reduces friction by 50%, meaning a team of roughly 20 men could move a multi-ton block with coordinated effort. Ancient Egyptian art even shows this. A famous wall relief from the tomb of Jehutihotep depicts hundreds of workers hauling a colossal statue on a sledge, with a single figure at the front pouring liquid directly onto the sand.